What's up, guys? Welcome back. It is John Evans, the head coach of THPStrength. This is Isaiah Rivera. He's got a 50.5-inch measured vertical leap. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about what you should do when the program stops working. We're going to deep dive into this. We're going to talk about why, some solutions, how we solve this problem for ourselves and for some of our athletes. Specifically, we've got one guy in mind. Shout out Jack Barry. We talked about you extensively today because we get on a call every morning and talk about our athletes and try to help them in the best way possible. So this is always a fun thing, not fun necessarily, but it's a part of the problem solving that goes into being a good coach. Like, I think that any coach can make claims or say like, oh, guarantee X amount of progress in X amount of time. But where the rubber meets the road, when you have an athlete that is in this position, you start to deal with unquestioned questions or unanswered questions. In some cases, it depends on the complexity of the specific case. And yeah, I guess I'll kind of ask you this, Isaiah. What is a specific time you can remember being in that place where it was like, I'm supposed to be getting better, but I'm not getting better? Why? What do I do? How do I solve this? What was your process of problem solving like?
Yeah. Um, I would the first one that comes to mind is going from a 48-inch vertical to a 50-inch vertical. And that seems like, I mean, that's a big milestone. I went from 48 to 50, but how it happened is I was stuck at 48. It actually went down to 47 and I was stuck at 47 for
Wait, when was this?
I tested a 48 in 2020, and then I didn't PR past 47 until 2022. So that was 2 years where I didn't hit a vertical jump PR. Um,
Was
and
this
I had
during the back pain arc?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I had pretty robust training. Like from the outside looking in, if you were to just look at the programming that I was doing, it looked pretty complex. It looked like good training. I was hitting some pretty big numbers, but my vertical wasn't going up. Um, so yeah, that's the biggest plateau I can think of.
Okay, and when it came to the problem solving process, what were some things that you either looked at or tried, or how did you approach it from like a psychological point of view?
Hmm. That's a tough question because I gotta like put myself back in those shoes.
I do remember you saying, "I don't think it's possible to get a 50-inch vertical," like,
Yeah,
vividly.
I mean, part of it was that like it was just like kind of accepting that maybe I wouldn't hit a 50. Um, but I enjoyed training is the other thing. Like I was okay with training and not getting and not improving my vertical.
That's
Um,
crazy. Said no one
yeah,
ever.
yeah,
But, I mean, I also agree with this. I'm very similar in that sense. I love training, and whether or not I get better, I'm still gonna do it. I also have a different understanding of the training process, so I think that also changes things. But it also kinda comes back to what we were saying yesterday in the podcast, right? Like, the needs analysis thing.
yeah,
It what you have to do, in my opinion, as a coach who's worked with a lot of athletes who've been in this position, including myself, is you need to think clearly about why and answer that question. And once you do that, you can start to direct the training and how that's going to change over time. So for you, I was like, okay, why is he not jumping higher? Is it rate of force development? Is it the tendons? Is it the muscles? Are we doing something that we shouldn't be doing? Is it fatigue? Like, what has history showed us about your progress in the past, and how do I use that to inform my decisions in the future? So for you, you were, I think at that time, so this was all what, Los Altos 2021.
yeah,
So we were coming off of a back injury, and there was a little bit of the pain in that left hip with the IT band, and you were under a reasonable amount of stress prior to that. We had finished up doing a lot of max strength work, but mostly half squats, limited because of the intensity, and a good bit of sprinting. So you were super light at the time.
yeah,
So one of the things that we did troubleshooting with is we took the sprints out. That was one thing that we did. We started to recognize the importance of strength work for you, but specifically lifting very, very, very heavy, and being able to get through those periods. And I think too, there was just a process of accepting like this is going to take time. Like you're at a plateau and you need the right environment to test better. And I always say this, like you don't train more, have better adaptations, better physiology, and get worse typically. That's not
Yeah.
generally what happens. So we knew that the training that you were doing was very informed, and we basically just started walking down the path of getting you healthy and getting you maximally stronger. We built a bigger motor. And I think some people think, "Oh, I'm strong enough. I don't need to get stronger." And my answer to that is no, you're not. Like
Yeah.
Fabian was able to do 270 kilos in a box squat for 3. His max on that jump was 198 over the hurdle. And I said, "Yeah, I know you can do 270, but why don't we shoot for 300?" And it's like,
Yeah.
"Why?" And it's like, "'Cause you're an elite athlete and you're trying to get better. How else do you propose we improve?"
I mean,
Like,
I think right now is gonna be a good test of that because this is this is the most I've ever improved my strength levels and not had I haven't PR'd yet.
oh yeah,
And
yeah,
but it's purely my lens has changed on it because now it's
it's health related. Like,
you have to have the stars have to align. Not even
no,
health
agree,
related, because I
100%.
could be completely healthy, but then if I'm not in that high adrenaline environment, it's still unlikely that I'm gonna PR my vertical. But, like, if you look at the metrics, like, I tested 50 for the first time with a 285 power clean, a 405 deep back squat, and a 365 deep front squat. Those numbers are about to have gone up basically 30 to 40 pounds across the across the board. So it's like now it's a matter of having the stars align with health and environment.
Yeah, and I think too another indices that I like to look at is wattage and TPV. We don't have wattages, but we can look at what you're currently doing right now, and there's no doubt that your wattages are up on all of
Yeah,
those lifts if you did a VBT test on them. So that's a big part of it. And then I think too, I can hear Rolf's, comments echoing in the back of my mind about time to peak velocity. Unfortunately for us, or fortunately for us, we don't really have too many limitations with time to peak velocity. We do, but less than sprinting. So your
yeah,
TPVs have gone up at those lighter loads quite a bit. And I think too, as we start to actualize some of that with the plyos, it'll, it's kind of game over with the right, like you said, with the right environment. The bigger issue is keeping you healthy. I think now, and I always say this, when you're on the brink of doing something that's never been done before, the risk goes up drastically. Like
yeah,
breaking world records is not safe, whether
yeah.
it's
I mean, I
in a
can
car or a plane or on
yeah,
the ground or in the air, like jumping, it's you're challenging the capacities of human performance and what we ever thought was possible out of the 8 billion people on the planet. So it's not just like another day at the office, you know what I mean? You're
yeah.
really dealing with the pinnacle of human capabilities. And yeah, I think
That's
that's
so
that's
weird to think
of it.
about, bro.
What, that out of 8 billion
You
people, you
say
jump the
8,000,000,000
highest?
people, yeah, it just gave me anxiety. I was like, "Wait, that is fucking
Pretty
weird."
crazy, huh? Yeah. Yeah, I like that. So, I think when you take it inside of that lens, that you're one of the little
Yeah,
specks out of the 8 billion and you just happen to be the highest bouncing one of those little specks, then you start to realize that you're not normal and the
yeah,
considerations are not necessarily normal. That said, I think we can still draw a lot of things from that. So, we had this other case today of this kid Jack, and
yeah,
he basically came to us and he gave a bunch of information, and Isaiah gave me the like too long didn't read and was like, "What do you think?" So he had started in August, did one of the progressions that I've wrote out where we really work on developing TPVs, we develop on working increasing max strength. So it's not only just developing strength and power, but it's how fast can you generate that power, right? It's trending towards the side of speed more so than strength. It's an acceleration indices, and I really like that cycle. It's very intense. There's a lot of there's depth jumps in it. At one point, there's stiffness hops in it. There's TPV exercises where you're like trying to get incredibly high velos on most of those movements. There's eccentric overloads. It's just very, very, very complex. That whole cycle is, and you think, oh, well, complexity like that is obviously better. Not always, But in this case, I do like it. I've tried it a handful of times, and I performed quite well on it as well after I finished that 6-month mesocycle. So, you're basically getting feedback from that. And Isaiah was saying, look, like he's not necessarily jumping higher, but all of his metrics are up. So he's in a similar position as you.
Yeah.
And so I started to problem solve, and it kind of is similar things, right? Like in his case, the first thing is he told me he was on a carnivore diet, right? A carnivore diet is not necessarily good for high intensity activity. I'm sure like there's people out there that are rolling over in their grave. Like, how are you expecting to jump 40 plus inches when you're not taking any carbohydrates in? Because glycogen is a fuel, or it's a driver of high intensity activities in the muscle. That is literally what you need between bouts of max effort attempts,
Your
right?
fuel,
That's
baby. Using
yeah.
E85, 85 in the gas tank.
No, it's like nitrous oxide.
Yeah.
So jet fuel. And then you also had the consideration of his work. And I've noticed this. Nathan is a good example of this. When you work on your feet, progress is so much more difficult.
I went through that
And
too. When I used to work retail and I had to
mhm,
be on my feet for 8 hours a day, it sucked.
that was weird. Everything just magically shut off. So we had to time skip to this point. Anyways, we were talking about walking fatigue. So, yeah, walking, every time I've seen athletes walk a lot, like you just said, when you were in retail, when Nathan was walking a lot, when I was in high school, when I was working a lot, cleaning cars, it just fries your legs. I don't know what it is about it that just down regulates the nervous system. But if I try to do any power activity after that, I just really struggle. It's not always the case. So our second recommendation was you need to cut down the walking during your deload weeks, and we're going to see if that has an effect. And it is a lot of the time like trial and error. You don't always know if what you're testing is, necessarily the correct direction, but you have to use the information you have at hand to make the best decision possible. Hopefully the athlete can help you make those informed decisions, or what questions to ask to get the answers that you need, right? And it's kind of more about what you're adding in your training that maybe doesn't need to be there. Like a lot of the time that can be a cause or a major driver of long-term plateaus is you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. So for
Yep.
example, if I'm an NBA player, you want to jump higher? It's going to be hard. Why? Because you're playing a lot of basketball or volleyball. Why? Because you're playing a lot of volleyball. And that makes it hard to hit really high intensities. And I'll give you the kind of analogy in track. If I had an athlete that was like, yeah, I'm going out and I'm required to run a 5K every day, and then they come to practice and I'm going to ask them to do a bunch of sprints, it's going to be pretty damn hard to get them faster. Or if they're a high jumper or a long jumper, it's going to be pretty damn hard to get them to jump farther or get them to jump higher. Or if they were like, hey, I'm playing an hour of basketball every day, or I'm playing an hour of volleyball every day, and they came to practice afterwards, like it's almost useless. It's going to be so difficult to get that athlete to improve. And it's not necessarily just what they're doing like on a field or court or whatever else. It could also just be something they're adding in the weight room that we don't know about. Maybe they're an athlete who's doing, I don't know, a ton of leg extension or something, and we have no idea that they're doing that,
Yeah.
right? Like they just randomly forget to tell us that. So yeah, it is about like having a conversation and trying to problem solve. And I think there was one more reason why, and it was the environment. And you kind of alluded to this. Like PRing your vertical is difficult no matter who you are, regardless of whether you have a 48-inch vertical or a 50-inch vertical.
Unless
And
you're a
it's
complete noob.
yeah, exactly. And he has good training age. So we know that Jack is not a noob. He's not in that category, that bucket of like total beginner. He's going to be a tougher case. Typically, guys like this, when they improve a lot. They hit a plateau for a while, but the improvements are very, very noticeable. It's like,
It's like a stepwise function. It's like
yeah,
straight line, straight line, straight line, boom, and then
big improvement. And it's possible that that whole time they were climbing up, but their expectation of like what is good and bad is different, right?
yeah.
Like
Like
that's
right
also
now, I bet
possible.
you, like physiologically, he's changed. His outputs are probably up. It's just a matter of stars aligning, like removing some of those obstacles to performance that he's experiencing. Time having it align with a deload week. The thing is that the longer you stick with it, the higher the chances that the stars are going to align. And eventually,
Exactly.
your outputs go up so much that your basement of performance increases. So you don't even need to have the stars aligned, but that
Exactly.
typically takes longer. Like right now, for example, I could probably hit like fresh. If I'm fresh, I can hit 48 any day. like literally any day.
That used to be your plateau mark.
3 right, 2024, 3 years ago, that was not the case. Like, the stars needed to align, and that would be my best day ever, but guess how long it took? 3 years
Exactly. Yeah.
for that basement to go up for me.
And I always say that too is like there's always next time. I
Yeah,
think, and I've fallen into this trap, and I tell Isaiah when it happens, I'm like, dude, I'm literally preaching to the choir here. Like I am the athlete that I talk to all the time and not complain about, but I'll be like, oh, dude, it's just blah 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 blah. But then when you're in that position, it's good to have a third party kind of tell you like, hey, no, you're doing what you need to
yeah,
do. You're gonna improve if you keep doing this. Just like stay the course. You know what you need to do, and that is the answer. It really is just like keep going, and there is next time. You always have another chance to try and improve your performance, right? Like it's not like the Olympics where you get one time every 4 years. With what we do, every week is an opportunity to perform better than you did the previous week, or than you did maybe all time. Who knows?
yeah. I see it as, like, every month. Every deload
For
is an
you, yeah.
opportunity too.
Which is funny. Did you
Yeah,
you have a deload next week, right?
yeah,
We'll see how the today
crazy.
goes.
This cycle has been ridiculous.
Yeah, we just need to not have you get hurt. That's the big thing. Bailey, what
Yeah.
do you think about all this?
It's starting to feel it's
Can you
starting to
hear her
feel
sniffing?
like no, no, I don't hear it. But it's starting to feel like because it's been so long, it's starting to feel like I'm gonna PR on a random day. Like, it's one of those
Yeah,
things
and
where,
it's
like,
gonna be, like, way
50's gonna be
higher
the
than expected.
basement. Yeah, yeah,
And you're like, "What
exactly.
the hell? Like, why does this happen?" I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Like, it because
the
I
likelihood goes up as you train more and get fitter.
the numbers bro, it's at the point where every weight room session, I'm like, "This is crazy." Like, the numbers that I'm putting up is
Someone
doesn't make
said
sense.
on your Instagram today, they were like, "If I saw that, I would've just left. I'd have just
Yeah,
walked out." And I laughed. I thought that was so funny. I was like,
yeah,
"Yeah, it's fair." I'm, like, desensitized to it because 'cause I'm used to seeing you lift so heavy.
yeah,
But I think when the mortals, the regular people, the other
yeah,
7.99999 billion people see what you do, then we're like, "Oh,
yeah.
damn. What the heck?"
Things are getting scary, man, and I'm doing it sick is the other thing.
Oh, dude, that's your baseline. That's your baseline.
I hey,
Um,
I added the sicknesses loading on my 3rd week like I usually do, and I'm gonna
yeah, and
do
then when you
those
unload,
from the
yeah, we just
sickness.
need to don't get hurt today. That's the
Yeah,
only thing.
yeah,
Isaiah's fiending to dunk. Like, the fact we made it 17 minutes through this podcast is honestly probably one of the most impressive things I've ever achieved in
it's
my
a
entire life.
meditative practice. It's a
It is a
meditative
meditative
practice. I
practice.
have to
Anyways, that
be
said,
aware of my excitement and just accept that I have to do this podcast. Except, when I meditate to my breath, now it's just our words, our yapping.
yeah, it's just yapping.
Yeah,
Um, we're yappers,
yeah.
full-time yappers.
We're major
Actually,
league yappers, bro. It's our job. Our
major
job
league
is to yap.
yappers. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Anyways, that said, we're gonna close off this yap sesh, and we're gonna tell you guys to go to THPStrength.com if you want to get coaching from the two best in the biz, and we stand by that. Hopefully, please, if you're watching this, leave a comment below if you made it this far and say, Isaiah, don't get hurt today. You're on the cusp of 51. Thanks, guys. We'll see you Monday. See you guys Monday. Bye.